I'm April Davila with Sit Right Here, and this is First Page Friday. Today we're going to look at somebody's first page, novel, memoir, short story. I don't know. I haven't even read it yet. We're going to read it together, and then we'll jump back up to the top, and we'll talk about what's working, what could use a little tweaking, and we all learn a little bit something on the way. So thank you to our author for submitting their page. We do this anonymously, so no one even knows it's yours unless you choose to tell us in the comments. And if this is not your page and you want to submit one for me to review, there's a link below in the show notes. You can send that in and we'll put you in the queue. And with that said, I guess like and subscribe so that you'll see when the next one comes up, and let's jump into it. Now, I have not even read this yet, so bear with me if I mispronounce, but we're just going to jump right into it. The Pearl of Pressburg. Engaged? You're engaged? Marina Feigler stared at the tangled heap of silk skirts crumpled on the floor of her father's library. Just moments ago, the very spot on the floor had been occupied by her neatly arranged index cards, each inscribed in her best handwriting with her notes of Herr Dewey's decimal classification. The final examination loomed in less than a month, and though Pressburg's own head librarian, Herr Kumlik, promoted the universal decimal system, Marina needed to master both to earn the coveted librarian's diploma. Now, weeks of her work lay trampled beneath yards of ivory fabric and the sobs of her best friend, Countess Ada von Hoyos, whose dramatic descent turned Marina's quiet Sunday afternoon into chaos. "Yes, I'm engaged," Ada wailed. "To a man I've never met," she added, her voice muffled by fabric. Outside, Pressburg's busy Hallmarksplatz hummed in the distance, but inside the walnut-paneled room was dead silence. Marina was at a loss for words, which was not a sensation that happened to her often. As the youngest child and only daughter of the renowned Pressburg architect Alexander Feigler, she had long mastered the art of conversation. From an early age, she delighted in practicing foreign words she'd read in her Apuchi's library with anyone she could. She was fluent, of course, in German, Hungarian, and Slavic, later adding Polish, passable Czech, and a smattering of Italian, and even a touch of that exotic English she'd picked up after Empress Elizabeth had declared it fashionable after her visit to the Buckingham Palace. All right, very fun. I will say our submission process tends to take out the character turns, so I'm going to add them back in as best I can. There are a lot of things to like about this first page. We get dropped immediately into scene with that, like a big deal question. Engaged? You're engaged? Marina Feigler stared at the tangled heap of silk skirts crumpled on the floor of her father's library. Just moments ago, the very spot. So I guess I might say the very spot that just moments ago had been occupied. So this is, again, just suggestions here. The very spot on the floor that had been occupied just moments before by her neatly arranged index cards, each inscribed in her best handwriting with notes of Herr Dewey's decimal classification. Now that is a long sentence, but that's okay. Like it's a solid sentence, and it's doing a lot of work. So Mariana Feigler stared at the tangled heap of silk skirts crumpled on the floor of her father's library. The very spot, and we already said on the floor, the very spot, let's say, on the floor of her father's library, on the very spot that had been occupied just moments before by her neatly, it might even just say, we'll come back to it. Her neatly arranged index cards, each inscribed in her best handwriting with notes of Herr Dewey's decimal classification. The final examination loomed in less than a month. So you've established us well in scene, even just in those there's two questions and a long sentence. And then we get a little bit of backstory here. Not even backstory, just like context, right? The final examination loomed in less than a month. And though Pressburg's own head librarian, Herr Kumlik, promoted the universal decimal system, Marina needed to master both to earn the coveted librarian's diploma. Now, generally speaking, I am reluctant to bring in too many names on a first page. Usually the rule of thumb is like 2 or 3 characters, right? And we have Mariana, and there's someone she's talking to who we will learn is Ada. But here, Herr Dewey, like the Dewey Decimal System, it almost isn't a name. It's almost an improper noun at this point. And then I don't know Kumlik, of course, but I feel like this doesn't overwhelm me as a reader in terms of names to keep track of, because these are more like systems. These are names associated with systems, not necessarily characters I need to keep track of, at least not yet. They may become characters, which I actually would love. I can't believe I've never read a story about the Dewey Decimal System. How fun. Okay, she needed to earn both. Now, let's put... Now, weeks of her work lay trampled... so now we're coming back into the present. Now, weeks of her work lay trampled beneath yards of ivory fabric, and the sobs of her best friend, Countess Ada von Hoyos, whose dramatic descent turned Marina's quiet Sunday afternoon into chaos. Yes, I'm engaged. And you can hear the petulance in this. Yes, I'm engaged, Ada wailed, to a man I've never met, she added, her voice muffled by fabric. Now, again, I am not a copy editor. I'm a story and line editor. I'm pretty sure that's a capitalized she. I'm sure our copy editors can hop in below and give us the details there. She added her voice. Well, I think the exclamation point makes this capitalized. I don't know. She added her voice muffled by fabric. Outside, Pressburg's busy, hue-marked plots hummed in the distance. So is it outside or is it in the distance? Hummed. I'm going to say hummed with activity. Because it seems like it's if it's right outside this room, hummed with activity. But again, activity is kind of vague. Hummed with the activity of shoppers, or I don't. What's happening? What are the sounds that one might hear from Hugh Market plots? And I'm sorry, I'm butchering the German. It has never been a language I'm very good with. But inside the walnut paneled room was dead silence. Mariana was at a loss for words. Now, just for fun here, whenever I see, you should never try to get rid of was, right? It's an important word. But when I see three of them on one line, I do wonder if there's a way to be a little more engaging in the phrasing. But inside the, so maybe dead silence, persisted or descended, or dead silence settled, something like that. Marina was at a loss for words, and this, I know it's back to back was, but this is actually funny and insight into this character. Marina was at a loss for words, which was not a sensation that happened to her often. That's funny. As the youngest child and only daughter of renowned Pressburg architect Alexander Feigler, she had long mastered the art of conversation. Now, I don't know why it would, again, here's another name, and it was starting to edge into being a little overwhelming. So I wonder if you could just say, as the youngest child of an only daughter, youngest child of 8, I'm totally guessing, and only daughter, she had long mastered the art of conversation. We can get to who dad is later and why it matters, but who her father is and what he does for a living doesn't really apply to why she would have mastered the art of conversation. What seems like the more the more pertinent detail is if you're the youngest of 8 and the only daughter, you're competing with 7 brothers. Yeah, you're going to learn how to speak up. So I think that's the important part for right now. And that kind of simplifies not bringing too many names into the first page. From an early age, she delighted in practicing foreign words she'd read in her Apuchis. I don't know, is that for... I'm guessing it's not wrong, but is it a grandfather? I don't know. I'm fine with it, whatever it is. If I were a reader picking up this book, it wouldn't give me pause. I would just read on with anyone she could. She was fluent. She delighted in practicing foreign words she'd read in her Apuchis library with anyone she could. She was fluent, of course, in German, Hungarian, and Slovak, later adding Polish, passable Czech, a smattering of Italian, and even a touch of that exotic English she'd pick up after the Empress Elizabeth had declared it fashionable after her visit to the Buckingham Palace. Now, so there's a lot. This sentence is another long one, which, again, is totally fine. This is a story that is a little more formal, a little more florid, but it breaks down a little bit here. She picked up after this happened. I wonder if you could break this up for clarity. Exotic English she'd picked up. She'd even, I would say, and even picked up a touch of that exotic English. I guess you could even do it as a comma. Compelled to do so after Empress Elizabeth had declared it fashionable. Again. Let's say after Empress Elizabeth visited would it be the Buckingham Palace? I think it's just Buckingham, yeah. Visited Buckingham Palace and declared it fashionable, and declared the language fashionable, something like that. That way we're preserving the longer flow of the sentence, but removing the double after. She was fluent, of course, in German, Hungarian, and Slovak, later adding Polish, possible Czech, a smattering of Italian, and even, and had even picked up a touch of that exotic English, compelled to do so after Empress Elizabeth visited Buckingham Palace and declared the language fashionable. I think that runs a little smoother. So in general, this is a really good first page. We get that Mariana is an ambitious, especially for a woman in the time of Empress Elizabeth. I don't know my years well enough in history to even say when this is, but we know that it's a time when women were not encouraged to be ambitious or to have careers. So the fact that she was doing this thing and then her friend comes in and kind of trashes her work to complain that she's engaged. And the voice of these two characters are really good. And again, this is more of a third person narrator, but the style gets to the voice. And then we get to Ada's voice. We don't actually hear Marina. Sorry, I keep saying Mariana. We don't really get Marina's voice just yet, but we do get her friend, so we get a sense of it. And so this poses two questions really well. It's the question of will she get her coveted librarian's diploma? What will happen to Ada? We have an interesting bit of historical context, right? For those of us who are nerds and would love to know more about the Dewey Decimal System and whatever drama was behind that being established. You also, in terms of the practical elements of a scene, you drop us right into a scene, a certain number of people in a certain place at a certain time. You don't spend time on backstory. There, just enough here to give context, but it's not really like the whole backstory yet. Again, here we get a little bit of context, but not necessarily a ton of backstory. We learn that she's the youngest of, I'm guessing on 8, but tell us how many children there were. I'm guessing this is historical fiction, so you probably have the answer to that. If not, you make it up. And then, I guess the one question was this outside. I do like the context of it being like, what's happening outside. That's one thing you could answer a little more distinctly. And I just put hummed with activity, but if you could add a specific, like maybe there's a market happening outside, or is it the kind of square where people would stand up and like share political opinions, or there's opportunity to give a little bit more context of the day and age. But in general, these are clearly well-off individuals. I would definitely keep reading this. I'm curious to see what happens to these two young women. I'm curious about the context, and the writing is solid. So I think I will leave it at that. Thank you, dear writer, for sharing your page with us. This doesn't work without that. And if it was not your page and you'd like to share yours, there is a link below. You can check that out. Send in your page. We'll put it in the queue. And if you are working on a novel, this is what my team and I do all day, every day. We help writers fine tune, right? Just those little details that it's hard to see in our own writing. We help you spot them, fix them, and get your writing as solid as it can be before it goes out into the world. So if you'd like to book a call, please go ahead. The link is below in the show notes as well. Otherwise, happy writing. I will see you next Friday. Until then.